in 2007, I made a horrible hire when it really mattered, and that cost me like 80 grand. Yeah, if I were to sell YNAB today, I definitely could retire. Why don't I do it? My name is Jesse Meekum. I am the founder of YNAB, and I started it back in 2004 while my wife and I were still finishing up. Well, not finishing. We had 3 years of school left for me, a year for her, and we needed to make extra money. So while everybody talks about, you're an entrepreneur, you had these grand entrepreneurial visions, I had none of those. We just needed to make extra money to pay the rent, to hopefully make it through school without borrowing any money. So that was why I started YNAB. My wife and I had built a little spreadsheet, and it was working for us. Despite our meager income, we were able to scrape together some savings. And so I had the audacity to believe that it might help other people. So with that, it was born. And then it's just morphed over time as technology has changed. We've tried to keep up with it as well. My dad was an attorney my whole life, practiced it, always did his work because he wanted to provide for the family. He never really gave me the impression that he enjoyed it. He always said he enjoyed helping people. You got the feeling there was a lot that he didn't like about that world. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she was just there when I got home from school, and that was actually pretty amazing. I grew up with 5 siblings. It was a full house. And then as far as education goes, like I kind of alluded to, I ended up getting a master's degree in accountancy from Brigham Young University, and I worked as a CPA for a year out of school before jumping over to do YNAB full time. And as I did also mentioned, I'm married still to the same woman I mentioned before, my wife Julie, and we have 7 kids. And yes, it is a full house. Yes, they were all on purpose. I'm trying to think what other questions people normally ask. Yes, it is busy, but it's lively and fun. Definitely more of the water jet type. Financial district sounds stuffy and doesn't sound very fun, but that water jet thing, that looked pretty cool. I like things pretty low key, and so stuffy's not really my vibe. The book that I've most given to acquaintances is actually a book called Healing Back Pain by the late Dr. John Sarno out of NYU. And I struggled with severe low back pain for 7 years, from the time I was 25 until about 32. No, that's not true. 23 until about 30. And it was 7 years. That was the important part. Just low back pain. You wake up, it's there. You're sitting, it's there. You're standing, it's there. You're walking, it's there. You're running, heaven forbid, it's there. And it can really mess with you psychologically. And it's real pain. And it beats you down. Dr. Sarno had this theory called tension myositis syndrome, that this real pain is caused by an emotional response that you have. And read his book, and 2 weeks after reading it, working through it, journaling, getting a therapist to let me process feelings, all those healthy things, the back pain disappeared. And occasionally it rears its ugly head, but it's not very often. So there are many, many times where someone will say, I've had this pain. It hasn't gone away for, X weeks or months or years. And I just have a bunch of these books, Healing Back Pain, on my bookshelf. I buy them in bulk and give them to people. I think I would say something to the effect of spending can be joyful without causing any feelings of guilt or second guessing. And if I were to shorten it, because it's a billboard and I want the letters to be bigger, I think I would just say joyful spending. No, I would put a question mark. Joyful spending? Yeah, something like that. And they would think it was a Christmas billboard or something. Here's a way to spend money. But fact of the matter is, if your spending isn't bringing you joy, there is something fundamentally wrong with it. And I firmly believe you can achieve it. We've seen it happen. So that's what I put on the billboard. Yeah, if I were to sell YNAB today, I definitely could retire. Why don't I do it? I'm learning still. It's still challenging, and it's a good thing. Like it's a good. So you're doing something good that's helping people. It's helping the team. It's good for the team, for their families. It's good for our users. So there's something that's an actual objective good in the world that I get to participate in. Check. I get to learn new things every day. Check. And it challenges me because it's new and changing, and what's AI going to do now, and what were phones going to do back then, and what are wearables going to be like when they're just like, you have this omniscient, not omnipotent, but omniscient wearable that people just rely on for everything. How's that going to change how we spend our money? And how can we make sure that our money is still being spent intentionally without that pernicious second guessing where we feel like it's just dripping through our fingers, like sand? And because of all that, I'm terribly interested in it still. So the only reason that I would retire is if, something fundamentally changed in my life where it was just like, hey, you cannot devote the time to that. You've got to devote it to this other thing. Besides that, I just want to keep going. It keeps you sharp, and we got to have, if you retire, you got to have some other thing you're going to do anyway. You can't just retire and play golf. I actually know a couple people that tried that and they didn't last long. They ended up having to find something. It's higher level strategy. I don't do a lot of just kind of nitty gritty management. I don't do any management. I don't have any direct reports. That is by design and lovely. I loved all of my direct reports over the years, but I really enjoy just not having that responsibility. So I get to mentor in other ways, and I get to still be involved in projects. Sometimes the nitty gritty of a project, and that's a lot of fun. I don't have to work on company communication, the nuance of communicating with 180 people. That's nice. So Todd has to do all of that. But yeah, I'm still just every day in the business, working normal hours. I don't work overtime or anything like that. And I hope none of YNAB's team does that as well. But yeah, just still working and enjoying it. And the flexibility is nice, but oversold. People will often say, oh, it must be nice. You get to set your own schedule. But it's really hard to turn off the concern and thinking you have in your brain about your business. So people are like, oh, it must be nice. It's so flexible. It's like, well, yeah, but this is always on in my head. So is that nice? I don't know. It just is. I'm certainly used to it by now. But don't let anyone tell you, oh, it must be nice having a flexible schedule. Like sometimes I absolutely have to be somewhere and there's zero flexibility at all. I think it's just nice that I get to learn and be challenged and have it be a part of something that's doing a lot of good in the world. And that's nice. Schedule flexibility and romanticizing this entrepreneurial thing. I don't really buy it. I wish it were only one question we would have to ask, but the latest position that we filled a little bit ago, we had 900 applicants for it, for one spot. So we have to put the people through I almost apologize to candidates for the rigor that we require of them in order to throw their hat in the ring. That being said, it is not just one question. It is a series of questions, and each question is meant to give the person an opportunity to show those core values. And the questions are pretty hard to pretend. You kind of get a feel pretty quickly. So that works really well. So it's not one question. It's probably 20 to 25, depending on the position. But we have found it to be extremely effective over the years. Like this AI thing with the large language model that we're seeing right now with GPT, it's really on its face amazing to watch and to see, and the iterations are so fast, and people are thinking, man, AI is crazy, but the AI that feeds you the next thing on Instagram is also extremely effective, and the AI that figures out how it should market to you is also unfortunately extremely effective. So we've seen, like, AI has been in the background for years, and I hope with YNAB, it's if there needed to be some chat assistant in YNAB, sure, we would launch that. But I think a lot more of it's going to be behind the scenes where you don't actually know just how helpful this is and all of the magic that's going on behind. Because at the end of the day, the user has to have just this amazing experience where they basically say, I'm using this and it's fantastic and I don't even know, but it just makes me feel great. And their spending's better. They're feeling more joy. They're more confident, checks all those boxes. I think AI is going to be tremendously helpful there. We'll see exactly how we implement it, but it'll help. Absolutely. The high level strategy is you hire great people, and we do kind of have the rule that you should always be replacing yourself. Like in any position, you should always just be operating with that thought like I should replace myself, because there's two things it does. It helps you grow people that are reporting to you, and it also helps you think more like stepping out of your role instead of just kind of working in it. You're stepping out of it, and that helps quite a bit. So in any job, people should always just think like, how could I replace myself? And they'll find they get promoted like crazy because they just start to behave in a way that is higher leverage, and you just keep repeating that over and over. So in that sense, we just hiring great people. People ask me, it's probably the most common question people ask me. They'll say, where are you going to sell? When are you going to sell? What's your 5-year plan? I take it more day to day. I want to build a company that is good, that does good, that helps, and that lasts, right? That a lot of it is just making sure you stay around, and we'll just take it one day at a time, essentially. I would never say, oh, I'll never sell, because you just don't know. You just don't know what will happen, what needs will arise or whatever. But right now, I just really like owning it, controlling it, not having a boss, all those things. I mean, honestly, the learning is just the creativity and learning, that intersection. And then when you get to throw in technology, it kind of forces your hand. Like, you must keep learning because the technology is going to change. And so that's a nice default it's kind of handed to you, and you're like, well, you better do something with this. So where I get to still be creative, I get to still kind of experiment, I get to operate small and not deal with, forms and bureaucracy. And then where I get to keep learning. That's the same thing I was doing in 2004, and it's the same thing I'm doing today. And that's just a lot of fun. I'm better at it now than I was in 2004 for sure. But it's still the same. It's like, oh, you're learning, you're doing the best you can with what you have, making mistakes, and just moving forward. I think you're always trying to find yourself, like really trying to figure out who you are, like what makes you tick. And then once you kind of know yourself, you also have to know how you can express that, like how you can be that in the world. And I think that's just like a lifelong challenge where I started going to a therapist. I call her a therapist because that's what she calls herself. Some people would say, oh, that's more of like an executive coach, but I like calling her a therapist because I feel like then it removes a little bit of the stigma that people still attach to that. And so that's an effort in me just trying to learn more about how I think, what my tendencies are, where I came from, how I was raised, just all these inputs. And then it's just like the only story that I'm ever aware of is my own. And so the more you can learn about how the stories you tell, the more aware you can be, and I think operate more effectively. And so I want to say that I'm more self-aware than I was back then, but that the challenge is still the same of I got to know who I am and kind of how I operate. The other bit that I think is still a challenge is increasing the gap between stimulus and response. Like, so when something happens, do I have enough awareness where I can like not just react, but actually choose and act? And that, I think when I master that, it'll be transcendent or something. So we'll see how that goes. But that's those two pieces, that stimulus and response space, and then just continually knowing yourself and more self-awareness. I think that just helps in every facet of life. Yeah, I think it's great. I have a few concerns about it, but I think they're like readily addressed in the movement itself. I don't read it daily or anything, but it's just really important that people know why. Like, what are they going for? And it's really important that they know what they'll do when they supposedly retire. And if I were to change the name, I would try and get rid of retire, and it's like something else that's like more around like the freedom or the choice or the options that you have. But it ends up being the same. At the end of the day, you just accelerated. You lived on less than you earned by a lot and got to a spot that people hopefully get to, but you just got there a little quicker. So what's not to like? As long as people are being really intentional and staying balanced, I think also like all of life, health, relationships, and money, those three things. I don't rank money lower by any stretch. Like, money is everything. It's intertwined in everything, but just making sure that all of those needs are being met as you're striving so diligently, would be important. But overall, I love it. I'm all in on the idea. I think it helps people really be intentional, and what's not to like about that. I mean, maybe you're risk averse a little bit. Yeah. Like I'm the same way. Like I waited quite a while before I decided, like YNAB was making twice what my job was making before I decided it would not be risky to jump ship. Like I was making, I think 45 grand at my job, and YNAB made 90 or something that year. And I still was worried. So for me to say, oh, I can't believe you do it this way or that way, would be totally hypocritical. Like you have to figure out what the risk is. What's interesting is when I was kind of getting some counseling on this from a man in my church, he asked me 3 questions that I found just terribly instructive. He asked me, because I was like, should I jump ship? Should I leave my secure job, which is totally not even true, but should I leave that and try this? And he said, do you have any debt? I said, no. And that told him a lot, because it means I was living within my means. It meant that I wasn't, overextended, had a little bit of padding. He said, how old are your kids? Which is another form of saying debt, basically. Like, do you have other obligations, that you need to be aware of? And I said, they're 2 and 0. So he's like, okay. And then the third one was, would your wife be on board? Like, are you aligned with this with your wife? It's very, very normal, great advice. And that helped me realize there wasn't, he basically said, the only thing if the worst thing that would happen is you go get a job. It doesn't work, you go get a job, and as he painted it that way, I thought, oh yeah, there's not a lot to lose. The idea of a secure job is interesting. It's just not really true. 2020 certainly showed us a little bit of that, so in that way, I think people do kind of overstate the security that they have, and maybe if they stated it more appropriately, they might find that it's not as risky in contrast. I talk it all through with my wife, Julie. Like if there's a big decision, she doesn't need a ton of context a lot of the time. She can one of her gifts is just to be able to kind of cut to the chase, like get to the essence of a thing. That's tremendously helpful. And then I write, like I handwrite my thoughts and just kind of let it all, like just stream of consciousness, like just let it go. And that helps. That helps as well. The writing and then, sounding board with Julie. Between those 2 things, I feel like I usually can land in a good spot. I'm surrounded by other people where they have expertise in places, and obviously you pick people's brains as much as possible. But the writing helps me kind of be aware of my thinking, and that I find very useful. One that I had that was official was, his name's Dwayne, and I had joined basically a CEO group about 10 years ago. I would have been like early 30s maybe when I did. And I just felt like I didn't know like how to just do business, just like the standard basic stuff. And so I joined this group called Vistage. It's like a CEO network, and you find your own little local group. And I just surrounded myself with 12 or 14 other CEOs, and being able to just ask them questions and find out that the issue I was having, they'd had already and knew how to handle it, or they could tell me a story about a time. And then meeting one-on-one with Dwayne fairly regularly, 10 years, was very helpful. He just seen things already. So he would just ask good questions, and he's fantastic. So that really helped me kind of grow up just as a business owner. I got a tremendous value out of that. I invest in the most boring way. Like I'm as passive and broadly diversified as you can just possibly imagine. So I follow like Jim Collins. He's a good friend of mine, and his book. It's just, you just do it and you truly just forget about it and just let it be. And I'll occasionally like dabble, where you like throw money away, where you're like, I'm totally comfortable losing this money. So I've done that a little bit here and there, but the vast majority of it is just tied up in super boring stuff. And so far so good. So I would give the same advice. There's just a lot to like about the effort required to do quite well with your investing. It's probably like I bought like rental properties years and years ago, and so those have been great. I bought them probably 10 years ago, and so we have a few rental properties. that I have someone manage those. They're very, very passive. That's probably, I mean, I don't include YNAB in my net worth. Like I just pretend it's not there. I just act like I invest in the 401k, all that stuff. Our 401k is phenomenal at YNAB because we pay extra to basically have like the lowest fees you can get. You can maximize a Roth 401k. So instead of being capped at, what is it, $6,000 or something in the US, you can put in, 19.5 or something. I mean, so it's like there's some good mechanisms that we have in place. So we use the Roth. We actually do like the backdoor deal that people talk about. That's available. So yeah, that all just goes into like very, very plain vanilla index. Either it's a mix of bond and stock, but kind of total stock, total bond. I do keep it fairly conservative. I will say, like my business is so risky. My other investments are meant to be safe. They're not meant to like grow and have, take me to the moon. Like the business is supposed to do that in theory. So the investments are what you would see someone who's like 65. That's how they're allocated. Basically, it's like they're meant to just kind of be safe and secure. And in that way, I used to invest more aggressively, and I realized that it was stressing me out. So I dialed it way back and thought, oh, okay, my risk profile is basically I'm all in on one single stock. So everything else needs to be pretty safe. That's how we're allocated. Very, very boring. Yeah. Oh, Utah. 4 Seasons. Stock exchange. Even simpler. With kids, luxury resort. With my wife or just me, totally backpacking. Oh, marrying my wife. Yeah, that was the best decision. Worst one. Worst decision. I made a horrible hire early on, like 2007, when it really mattered, and that cost me like $80,000. And like we had to throw away the software that they had built and start over. So it cost us time and money. That was brutal. And that like $80,000's a lot now. In 2007, it was just brutally a lot. Like that one hurt. That one hurt bad. So yeah, and I just didn't vet him. I had all the kinds of gut checks, like, oh, this doesn't feel right, and I just ignored him. Yeah, to my shame. So I should come. I mean, I speak German, so I would be pretty comfortable on the German side, although they speak a different German than I learned, but I think they could accommodate me. So yeah, we need to get out there. We were in Austria. Oh gosh, it would have pre-2020. So like it's like all compressed on me. But yeah, one of our big things is to travel with the kids once a year. We try and do something pretty cool. Like we were in London earlier this year. It was just awesome. I had never been, Julie had never been, and the kids obviously had never been. And so we just had a great time just touring around. So yeah, I think we should just put it on the list. Yeah, the fondue sounds fantastic. So it's not a fancy restaurant, but my uncle owns a place. So I'm a little biased, but he owns a place in a town called Provo, Utah, that's south of Salt Lake, and it's called Backdoor Burger. And he makes very unique burgers. He has one that has like peanut butter and jelly on the burger, and it tastes good. Like they're good. Like people are like, oh, that's disgusting. They're just very unique, very creative, and it's just like a fun little place. So I would recommend that if you're like, I want to try a burger. If you're wanting like super fancy, fairly fancy, my favorite place is called Tiburon, and it's just like a nice white tablecloth place we'll go to, once or twice a year. Hey.